Welcome back, everyone, to Season 3, Episode 4 of the Inside the Woods podcast, a Valley News show where every week we will give an inside look at Dartmouth Big Green football as they make their way through the 2025 season. I'm your host, Mike Coughlin.
Sonye, 29 of 42, 357 yards. A new career high. He's hoping to tack onto it, get his team in a position to try and come out of here with a win. He's lined up, shotgun, snap comes. Pressure up the middle. Sonye standing in, going deep down the sideline. Has a man, Houghton, wide open. It's over the shoulder. It's Kedrick Fisher. Fisher's into the end zone. Touchdown, Dartmouth. Touchdown, Dartmouth. Touchdown, Dartmouth. Kedrick Fisher down the sideline. 50 yards on the touchdown strike, and the crowd is stunned. Fisher got free down the sideline, hung up there from Sonye, and he hauls it in with just 16 seconds left.
That was the Dartmouth radio broadcast call for another dramatic Big Green win down the stretch this past Saturday. This time, it was the Central Connecticut State University Blue Devils who fell victim to Dartmouth's late-game heroics, 35-28, when junior quarterback Grayson Sonye found a wide-open target in sophomore receiver Kedrick Fisher for the go-ahead touchdown with 16 seconds remaining. Sonye was lights out for the Big Green, throwing for 407 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Grayson to Grayson connection was also on display, as senior wide receiver Grayson O'Barra hauled in 7 balls for 128 yards. With the victory, the Big Green enter Ivy League play this weekend at 2-0 and have a road date this Saturday against Penn at 1. The Quakers enter Saturday's bout at 1-1, coming off a 44-30 loss to Lehigh, who is ranked in the FCS coaches poll as a top 10 team in the country. This weekend's matchup won't be for the faint of heart if history is any sort of indication. In the last 3 games between the two squads, the Big Green own a 2-1 advantage. However, 2 of the 3 games have gone to overtime, one being a double overtime game. And the 3 games have been decided by a total of 12 points. As always, we have an interview with head coach Sammy McCorkle to analyze last weekend's win and to dig into this weekend's matchup with Penn. In addition to Sammy, I spoke with the Big Green's offensive coordinator, Shane Montgomery, who might be new to Dartmouth, but is certainly not new to college football. Now let's get into the interviews. Here joining me is Big Green offensive coordinator Shane Montgomery. Shane joined the Big Green this past offseason and has more than 20 years of college football coaching experience. He was most recently at UMass as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. Hi, Shane. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Appreciate you having me, Mike.
So, first, take us back to the game-winning play against Central Connecticut on Saturday. I'm sure most fans maybe thought you guys were trying to get into position for a field goal. What can you tell us about that play call, what you were expecting, and what actually happened on the field?
Well, they had, we got in that two-minute situation with just under a minute left, and we had completed a couple passes. I think 2 plays before that, we had thrown an out to the field, and their guy, tried to get underneath and almost intercepted, and we got the ball. Luke Reeves caught it and got his feet in to get us to the 50-yard line. And so I think we ran another play. It was an incomplete, so it was 2nd down and 10, and I think there was, just under 20 seconds left. And, we really needed – I talked with Coach Chapman and our special teams coordinator, Coach McCorkle, and, we wanted to get the ball, somewhere 35 to 38 for Owen to kick the field goal. We felt like that was, the max distance for him. And so we were, we had a few minutes, a couple seconds. I was just thinking about, what they were doing. I was going to throw it, another, possibly an out to the field, but I thought, that guy just jumped it. So we kind of did, I just called a double move that, we hadn't practiced it hardly at all. We have it in and we practice it, but it had been a couple weeks since we practiced it, and it just ended up working out. Their field corner, the same guy had almost picked it, kind of set his feet and looked inside like he was looking for an out, and he just sat there, and Kedrick was able to run by him. And obviously, it was a huge play to win the game.
Right. And, throughout your career, you've coached many quarterbacks, probably none as noteworthy as former Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Ben Roethlisberger. How has the quarterback position evolved in your 20-plus years, coaching college football?
Well, it's it really, obviously the offenses have changed. And really the thing with me is I've always tried to build the offense around really the framework of the personnel we have on offense, especially the quarterback position. So, it's really, I've been doing this long enough where I've had all kinds of different types of quarterbacks, and you really just build it around what he does best. Obviously, Roethlisberger threw the ball well. Now, we were very good around him. We were very good up front. We had some receivers that went to the NFL. So, we weren't, we could run the ball, but we obviously, we erred on the, passing the ball. That's where that's where our offense kind of blended to. But it really just depends on the type of quarterback. But the thing that has changed, I think, in the last 25 years since I've been coordinating is, you'd like to have a mobile quarterback that has some mobility that can escape pressure, because you're seeing so much different things from the defense, and you're seeing a lot of pressure put on by the defense through different blitzes and multiple blitzes. You see a lot of guys that are stacking the box and trying to get, an extra guy in the running game. So if they're going to do that, you've got to have a quarterback that, he doesn't have to be a burner, a 4-4 type 40 kid, but he's got to be able to pull the ball and run the ball at times, just to have, a guy that has, that can, make a difference on that extra hat in the box. And, they just try to put an extra guy in, or you got to have a quarterback that can pull the ball as a threat of running. So I think that's how it's changed. But, I still think you've got to throw the ball in today's game. I always said that there's different ways you can generate to run the ball, whether it's jet sweep, whether you go wildcat and things like that. You want a quarterback that can run it, but there are certain ways you can generate the run game. But if you can't pass the ball, you can't pass the ball. I mean, there's no ways to generate that. So the game's changed a lot, but it still comes down to, blocking and tackling and scheme-wise. And you really, you just got to put your players in a situation where they can be successful.
Right, and sticking with the quarterback position, how would you assess the early season performance of your junior quarterback, Grayson Saunier?
I think Grayson's done a great job so far. And even though he's a guy that, he does have some experience from last year. He ended up playing in, I think, 4 or 5 games and started, a handful of them. He was coming into a new system. There's a lot of the same principles that we had that that they ran last year, but a lot of it, it's different terminology and different, the way of things that I do things that he had to learn. And but he's done a great job. Like I said, he is a dual threat kid. He can not only throw the ball effectively, but he runs the ball really well. So he gives us that element. And I think he's confident in what he's doing right now. I think he's become a really good leader for the offense. You saw that throughout the spring. I think the more experience he got, the more comfortable he felt being in that leadership position. And, he's had a great start. And I just hope that, as long as he stays within our system, I think we've got enough scheme-wise and we're good enough talent-wise on offense. If he just plays within our system, that he'll be successful.
Right, and, outside the quarterback position, there are multiple playmakers for the Big Green this season at skill positions who've already had, strong performances, like, running back DJ Crowther, a wide receiver Grayson O'Barra, a tight end Chris Corvo, to name a few. You're a well-traveled coach who's had to, get acclimated to new programs frequently. What are your secrets for evaluating your roster and figuring out how to best use the players that, are available to you?
Well, I think, like you said, I mean, you find out who your best players are, and you've got to find ways to get them the ball. And it's ever changing because, you have some injuries or you might have to move guys around, but they always say it's not about the X's and O's, it's about the players. So, I mean, you've got to, in certain situations of the game, whether it's, third downs, red zone, maybe special plays where you get one shot to do it. You want to get the ball to your best players that give you an advantage over the defense. And, obviously going into the season, Chris Corbo was a guy that we felt like we needed to get the ball to. Grayson O'Barra is just, he's had 2 really good games. And I wouldn't necessarily say that we've, tried to get him the ball. It's just worked out that way. Now, he's played both inside and outside receiver, so, he's been able to get the ball a number of certain ways. And then, to get the ball to DJ, he had a big first game, and, he didn't have a lot of yards in the last game, but there was a lot of tough yards he had running the football. They're pretty good run defense. So, it's just finding ways to get your best players the ball. You've got to move them around. You've got to see, how the teams are defending certain situations and certain formations or time of the game. And it's just, we just try to get our best players the ball. And, for those three, it's worked out really well. And those guys have stepped up the first three games.
Right. And then I just have one more for you, Coach. I wanted to ask, what attracted you to the Dartmouth job in the first place? And also, are you enjoying living in the Upper Valley so far?
Yeah, it's been great. I tell you, I've been here since early February, so it's been 8 to 10 months right now, and it's been a great transition. I was, like you said, I was down at UMass last year, so it was right down the road. So I was familiar with the area, this is a beautiful area of the country. And I really knew a couple guys. Braxton Chapman, a running backs coach, played for me for a year, my last year at Youngstown State. So I had some familiarity with him, and he could tell me a lot about the program. Keith Clark, the offensive line coach, I did not know Keith, but we had a really close mutual friend that I worked with at James Madison, and just really getting to know the program. And when I got involved in the process, talking to Coach McCorkle and, feeling really, really good about his vision and the vision of the program. And then obviously, being an Ivy League school like Dartmouth, the academic success, is something that's not at a lot of different places I've been at. So there's just a lot of good things. You have one of the top academic institutions in the country, along with a very storied football program. It's had a lot of winning seasons here, especially lately. So there was a lot that drew me to the position, and obviously I'm very happy it's worked out.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much for joining the podcast, Shane. I really appreciate it, and I wish you guys good luck this weekend.
Thanks, Mike. Go Green.
Before we get into our usual interview with Sammy, we're going to go inside the numbers on Saturday's matchup with Penn. Through their first two games, the Big Green's offense, for the most part, has been cooking. They're averaging 31 points and 478 yards of total offense per game. Not only is the offense performing well, but it's doing so when it matters. Last week's essentially walk-off winner is an obvious case of that, but even deeper, the Big Green have converted 62.5% of their third downs. Saturday's matchup seems to bode well for another Dartmouth offensive explosion, as Penn is allowing opponents to score an average of 32 points and amass more than 400 yards per game. It's also allowing teams to convert on third down at a 50% clip. On the defensive side of the ball, the Big Green have been sharp as well, holding opponents to just an average of 24 points and 325 yards per game. They have also been stellar on third down, holding opponents to about a 24% conversion rate. The Big Green will look to lock down an offense in Penn that is averaging 27 points and 360 yards per game. As good as the Big Green have been, they do have some blemishes. Their first two games, they have not come out strong, turning the ball over on their first possessions, then facing a deficit early. Additionally, the kicking game has also had its problems, with missed field goals or errors on point-after attempts. That said, the Big Green are winning despite their issues. If they end up correcting them, that could spell danger for the Quakers. Now let's hear from Sammy. Now joining me is Big Green head coach Sammy McCorkle, who leads his team into Ivy League play on Saturday with two nail-biting wins under their belts. Hi, Sammy. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
So, congratulations on Saturday's road win for the second week in a row. You got down early. Then your guys kind of, came back in the middle portion of the game. There were some problems in the kicking game, some penalties and struggles on pass defense to allow CCSU to get back into it. On top of it all, you had an amazing performance from your signal caller. What are your takeaways from the game against the Blue Devils?
Well, I tell you, we're excited to get the win. It's hard to win. And I just really was happy with the way our guys and our staff We were very poised. During that game, we knew it was going to be a tough game. It was going to be a battle. CSU is a very good football team. And, we knew we were going to kind of a hostile environment, homecoming for them. And we knew it was going to be potentially could be a 4-quarter plus game. And, obviously we had some, bad plays here and there. But I thought our guys did a really good job of not letting those plays, affect them going forward. And I thought our guys did a good job of settling down, especially there in that fourth quarter. And we had guys who stepped up and made plays when we needed to make plays. And we're just excited to come out of there with a victory.
Right, and in week 1, you guys were dominant rushing the football. Last weekend, Grayson threw the ball all over the yard. Could you talk about the versatility of your offense, how your coaching staff prepares from week to week?
Yeah, I think you always got to be able to adjust. You got to adapt and improvise. You obviously want to go into a game. You have a game plan, and you want to try to do something. But sometimes a defense or an offense, they're going to adjust as well. And so I thought our coaches on both sides of the ball and special teams did a good job of adjusting as the game went on. And if we got to run the ball, we're going to run the ball. If we get to a situation where maybe that's not working like we want it to, and we got to throw it around, we're going to throw it around. We're going to do whatever it takes to win a football game. And but I thought our staff and our players did a good job of adjusting throughout the entire game to give us an opportunity there at the end to win it.
Right, and as you guys head into the first game of conference play, I wanted to talk a little bit about the state of Ivy League football. We've talked previously about the opportunity for postseason play. Do you think the Ivy League is good enough to earn an at-large bid in addition to its automatic bid? And where do you think the conference stands on the national landscape?
Yeah, I've always thought we're a very competitive, very talented league, and I think that whoever represents our league when they go in the playoffs, I feel like they're going to do a good job. And but we're that's the playoffs are great and that's all good, but we got to focus on this week and Penn and it's playoff time now. Every game is a big game, and our main focus is we can't be worrying about the playoffs and obviously if we don't handle our business this week. But yeah, I do believe I think the Ivy League it's a great opportunity. It's an exciting time for representative for our league to be able to go in the playoffs and make a good run.
Right. And, so far this season, your defense has held opponents to, 5 of 21 on third down conversions. You've held both your opponents to under 100 yards rushing. You've recorded 5 sacks. On offense, you guys have kept Grayson upright so far, rushed for over 100 yards in both games. How are you feeling about the play of your lines headed into the conference season?
Well, I just think that's it's always that's the most important thing is how are you in the trenches on both sides of the ball. I think it all starts there, offensively and defensively. You're the guys up front are the ones who are going to determine a lot of times how the game is going to go. And I've been very happy with the way our offensive line has done a good job with opening holes for DJ and Dez and Grayson, and at the same time doing a heck of a job of protecting and allowing Grayson time back there in that pocket. And I think defensively, our guys, they work great as a unit. There's just not one guy who sticks out as the main guy. Our guys work as a committee, and I think they're doing a heck of a job. Coach Brooks does a great job of preparing those guys week in and week out. And those guys they're very disciplined guys up front. They play with a lot of energy and play with a lot of effort, and we're going to need that going forward each week.
All right, and then, finally, last week, Penn played a top 10 team in the country in Lehigh, according to, FCS coaches poll, pretty tightly for 3 quarters. And your games against the Quakers have been tight in the past. What stands out about Penn that could make them a difficult opponent again this week?
Oh, they're a very physical group. They're a very disciplined group. They're well coached. Ray and his staff do a phenomenal job, and they always have. But they're not going to allow you to get plays because they're in the wrong spot or they're doing the wrong thing. They're very disciplined, but they play hard. They're very physical. It's going to be a battle, and we got a huge challenge. And I know they'll be back. I think it's their first home game, I believe. So they'll be back in Pennsylvania, Philly. So we know we got a long trip down there, and we got to be prepared to play for 4+ quarters on Saturday.
All right, thank you very much again, Sammy, for joining the podcast. I appreciate it, and I wish you guys good luck this weekend.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
And there you have it. That was Season 3, Episode 4 of the Inside the Woods podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again next week to talk about Saturday's matchup with Penn and the Big Green's Week 4 homecoming battle with Yale. If you have a question for Sammy, email sports@v as in valleynews.com. That's sports@vnews.com. Emails there will give you the chance to have Coach answer your question on the next podcast. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week.